Hi guys, welcome back to Ozanimate, and today we're going to take a look at this brand new app called Loom. Okay, so let's jump into Loom and have a look. So here we are on the home screen where all your projects live, and basically you can browse through and preview each individual animation, and you can create a new one by pressing this plus button here on the upper left. And one of the things that I love about Loom is how playful this whole app is. So by creating a new project, you can see it's assigning a new random color to it. So already inviting you to play around with color and giving you basically sort of a experimental feel to the whole thing straight away. So let's jump into this red one here, and as I click on it, you can see it opens it up and we're getting the full interface of the app, which as you can see is very slick, very simple. Only a couple of buttons that basically are allowing you to start creating without any interference of tools and panels and pop-up that would get in your way. So what do we have here? We basically have 4 buttons, the home button here on the top right, and the play button here, a spinning wheel here that we'll talk about in a second, and then a little menu option here at the bottom left. So as you can see, I can draw into this canvas, I can pinch and zoom in and out. It's basically an infinite canvas. There's no limit, there's no sizing or anything. It's straight away you can start creating. So how does it work? So basically we have everything happens in between those 2 buttons and the play button, of course. So if I press on this button here, this is called the weave edit mode. And basically how Loom works is you have this project, which is called a weave, okay? And then you have those spinning things that are called threads, okay? And in one weave, you can have up to 5 threads, okay? Threads are basically layers, but even more than that, they are actual individual timelines that live within a single weave. And within one thread, you can have up to 24 frames. Okay, so that's the maximum amount of frames that you can play with. Okay, so they don't have to all have 24, they can have different numbers of frames. So as you can see, I'm inside when I press on a thread, I'm inside a thread edit mode, and I have a few options here. I can change the amount of frames that I have, the frame rate from 1 frame per second to 32 frames per second. I can remove frames, and as you can see, it's very easy to open that up. When I open this up, there's also a color picker that pops up on the right hand of your screen there. And again, this is really fun, really easy to sort of spin that and experiment with colors. You can see the pointy bit of the triangle basically points towards the color that is on the color wheel, and then you can adjust the saturation, brightness, hue, all of that right with this circle here. Okay, so let's go with this nice yellow, bright yellow color, and I'm going to delete a thread. I don't want that text anymore. So I can just go into the weave edit mode, press that, and then just drag onto my thread and delete that. So let's delete a couple more. So we're only left with just the one. Okay, so normally how you would animate with this is you can start on any frame, and how you scrub through frames is just by basically dragging your finger up and down, and you can see it's giving me this sort of circle here with a line that basically indicates where you are on the thread. Okay, so let's choose any frame. There's no number of frames here, no frame 1 or frame 0. It's all kind of wherever you want to start. So let's create sort of basic circle here. As you can see, if I click on that thread edit mode, I'm getting the color for that particular layer. So I can change the color, I can change the thickness of my stroke, the opacity, and there's also an eraser tool, which I can use to erase things. Okay, these 2 buttons here we'll talk about in a second, but this one here on the left is basically your onion skin, so you have frames before and frame after the current frame. So I can just start, creating some animation. I can just scrub through. You can see when I scrub through this, the thread has a filled circle, which indicates there's a frame here, and an empty sort of hollow circle with a small dot that indicates that this frame is empty. So I can add another one here and sort of scrub through. And you can see that this is how you would sort of traditionally animate. And because I'm scrubbing through here, it's very easy to sort of preview your animation before pressing play and getting a sense of the timing. So it's like flipping pages on an old school lightbox, basically. So, you know, nothing crazy here. As you can see, I can start getting some motion. So let's create a new thread and start from scratch here. So I'm going to delete this one. Okay, so now let's look at what if we want to have just one single layer, no animation. How do I do that? It's a spinning thing, so as you can see, it's spinning as I press play, which gives you an indication of the timing. Again, I can change the frame rate to make it spin slower. But if I want a static element, I just can get rid of all the frames but one. Okay, so I'll just have one frame here. Use the fill mode here, and you can see as I draw, it's kind of creating the fill for me. So this is a nice quick way to get some shapes very quickly. And again, at any time you can switch back to a stroke and you can see what that looks like. And it's very similar to the way the lasso tool would work in Photoshop, where you can just draw kind of a selection and then it fills in between those points, basically. So that's kind of an element that is static because I only have just one frame on my thread. Okay, so at any time I can press on that thread and then just move that around and scale it around. So let's say if I want to duplicate that thread, I can just go into the weave edit mode and then slide that here on the right, and it's going to duplicate my thread. So now I can grab this second thread and I can move it around, maybe rotate it, give it a different color. You can see I can start to create things very quickly. If I want to change the background color, I can click on the weave edit mode here, and that's going to open up my threads, but also this, again, this color picker, which allows me to quickly browse through and just change color here. Okay, so very fun, very quick to start playing around. Another thing that's quite amazing here is if I add another thread here, and now I've got more frames on this thread. Let's go and add 20 frames and give ourselves maybe like a 15 frames per second. So here's the magic. So I'm going to press play, and I'm just going to check that I've got the color I'm interested in. So let's go with a pink and stroke mode. Okay, so this wheel here is now spinning at 15 frames per second. We've got 20 frames spinning and playing, basically. So now I can almost animate live. Okay, so I can draw onto my screen and you can see it's registering what I'm drawing and then basically creating frame by frame whatever is happening on screen. So this is a lot of fun. I can change the frame rate if I want that to be faster. Okay, if I want to create another thread and this one with a different color, maybe a different frame rate, this is where the magic happens. So 8 frames per second. I'm going to make that quite a bit thicker. And okay, can you see how those two have very, very different frame rates? So you can really play with timing and experiment with a lot of things here. Again, I can change that color if I want to have something different. At any time, if you want to change the ordering of your layers, again, you can go back into the weave edit mode and then just drag those around, and that will adjust your layer order. So this is opening up plenty of doors. It's a lot of fun. You can start to really experiment with things and have a lot of fun here. It's super exciting. Okay, so how about exporting this? So right now in Loom, you can do a quick sort of export of your work by going into the weave edit mode, and you can see there's a circle that pops up here at the top. So if I click on that, it will ask me to allow screen recording. So I can just say, yep, record screen, and it's going to record the screen up until I think I just have to just press something, and then it will stop, right? So now we have, you know, a couple of seconds of that animation. That basically turns it into a MP4, and I can then export that, share it around as AirDrop or Gmail to my files, or I just can press save and that will go straight into my photo library. So that's one way of exporting. What if you want to use this in a professional environment and actually improve on that or incorporate that in your actual work? Well, there is a way to export SVG files from Loom. It's a bit of a workaround, but if you go on their website, you can have a look at the user guide, and there's a video there that explains it. But basically you can export the SVG, import that into Adobe Animate, and then export that as a SWF to then bring that into, say, After Effects. And then you can just really use that in your workflow. So it's a bit of a, you know, couple of steps to go through. So hopefully they'll improve that in the next versions. One thing I'd love to see is maybe a couple of help tips, you know, to kind of explain things, especially if it's your first time opening it up. I had a lot of fun exploring the different tools and options, and it's very, very intuitive, but you know, if you wanted to make that process a bit faster, it'd be good to have, you know, on the home screen some sort of tutorial that explains how everything works. But yeah, apart from that, it's a fantastic app. I'm sure it's going to evolve and grow and really opens up a lot of doors in terms of, you know, animation, experimenting. So much fun. As I said, feels like a toy, feels like you're playing music, you know, this way of going into a layer, and let's say you want to add more, you know, more things. It's like overdubbing in music. You can just add more and more and build upon what you have and kind of change things on the fly, change the thickness, change the color, the frame rate. You know, it's super flexible, a lot of fun, very fast to play with. So I hope you've enjoyed this demo, and I'll see you in the next one.